at bay. The Tampa Bay Bucs, Super Bowl 55.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Bucs Banter podcast. Here we are live on Bucs Report on this fine Monday, November 29th, coming off of a crucial road victory for the Buccaneers, something they haven't been too great at playing on the road so far this season. And I wouldn't say yesterday was a pretty victory, but they did get the job done. 38 Bucs, 31 Colts. How are you doing, boys? Scott Capron, Bodan Yard here with me. What's going on, fellas?
Feeling good, man. Feeling great.
Feeling like Lenny in the fourth quarter, buddy. I'm ready to go.
Love that. Love that, Mr. Capron. So, yeah, I mean, it was a really interesting game. It was entertaining, I guess, depending on the lens you were looking through. Frustrating, exciting, all that stuff. I think the keys to victory for the Buccaneers were the splash plays on defense. The team generated 5 turnovers. If you include the special teams play, which is of course a turnover. So, yeah, and then success on the ground as well. So in terms of those 5 turnovers, the Bucs D wasn't playing a great game in terms of their execution to slow down the Colts passing attack, but they did manage to create turnovers at key moments. I found it very reminiscent of their playoff run last year. That was kind of the MO of the defense, right? They weren't necessarily like a top tier defense in the league by any stretch of the imagination, aside from their stoutness against the run. But they have shown an affinity, or at least they did last season, for creating big plays at big moments, especially in the postseason. And it just felt like one of those games, like the game versus Washington, the game versus the Saints, especially, in terms of just kind of how yesterday went.
Yeah. So 100. So couldn't agree with you more on a couple of those points. Obviously, you'd rather see your defense consistently forcing 3 and outs and making stops as far as sustainability goes. But what they needed yesterday to win that game were these turnovers, were these huge plays. And that's exactly what Shaq Barrett did. And then they had the pick later on in the third quarter. And then obviously turning them into points on the other end. Because like you said, Colin, they weren't going to just stop them. It didn't seem like they were going to be able to stop them. They needed to force big plays and go from there. And you can win like that. You can win like that, but then you can absolutely get beat on any given day when your defense isn't playing well and isn't making those splash plays, right? So, it's kind of a 6 and 1/2 scenario because, like I said, you'd rather just knock the crap out of everyone and be forcing punts and all this, but they made the plays when they needed to and ended up with the win.
And it's a couple games in a row now that they've started to at least do that. Like when your defense is as banged up as the Bucs D has been, especially in the secondary all year, you're going to need some of these big plays. And I mean, the run D was obviously a huge factor because the presence and reputation of the Buccaneers run stoppers forced the Colts to ultimately abandon their traditional or preferred game plan so dramatically. Like coming off a 5 TD game for Jonathan Taylor, where him and the Colts offensive line just dominated the Bills in Buffalo. I was very curious heading into this game to see if they would remain stubborn with that like run first philosophy, especially after a game like that, or if they would try to attack the Bucs in a strength versus strength battle, like just run it down their throats. But Frank Reich and the offense, it was pretty obvious right away. They opted to attack the Bucs through the air, as every other team has done for the most part of this season, and it worked really well for that first half.
Yeah.
It really was working. Wentz looked good. He was taking what the defense gave him. Lots of stuff in that middle portion of the field. Chunk plays. But unlike many games earlier in the season, the Bucs D was able to create those turnovers that we're talking about, and that helped to bail the offense out a little bit. Because the offense looked very stagnant. They just did not seem to be on the same page, particularly Brady and his receivers.
It's a miracle they got to 38. They scored 38 points.
Yeah.
Hey, that's obviously an unreal output in any week, but the way that game looked, the way 38 seemed impossible.
Yeah, I texted Scott, I think early in the third, I was just like, it doesn't look like this is going to get going at any point here. It just felt like the Colts were in control, and to see that they were able to come back and kind of get a little bit of explosiveness back was surprising to say the least, and welcome, I'm sure, for all the Bucs fans. But yeah, just going back to the Colts, like their game plan was seriously, I think, is the same thing that every NFL team has. It's like, if you're going to play Tampa Bay, you can't really win. You can't win the game by running the football. So you have to go out there, establish your short game, establish those mid-range passes, and hope you get some yards after the catch that way and try to break one. But and not take anything from JT, anything away from Jonathan Taylor, but yeah, 16 touches for I think 83 yards. It's not a bad game, but it's you can't. They want to use him in their game plan, and you just can't against this defense.
Yeah, and like I think Frank Reich, I saw a snippet of his press conference today, and I thought he addressed it really well. And it's kind of like, no one's complaining about them altering their strategy in that first half when the Colts looked phenomenal, and then in the second half when things start not going their way, all of a sudden people are saying, why aren't we just pounding the rock with JT, right?
Yeah,
so it's
right.
like
that's
the fickle
so easy
nature
to
of fans.
say. That's so easy to say. That what the problem is, if you don't have a good quarterback, even if he plays well for a half, it's hard for them to play well for a full game, and that's what happened. Like Wentz wasn't brutal or anything, but he had a couple turnovers, and there you go. That's what happens once quarterbacks regress back to the mean, even after a hot start. Then this is when other better teams can get back in the game, and that's exactly what it was. If you're going to throw the ball and you've decided that you're going to throw the ball, you have to keep doing it, and that's what they landed on. But it just Wentz played about as normal a Wentz game as he can, and that isn't good enough to beat the Bucs, right?
I would say it was a good Wentz game, honestly.
Yeah, it was a good one.
To me, and as guys on this podcast who were slandering Wentz in our previews and of the season, I don't think very highly of him, but that was and he's shown up for a few weeks in a row now as being a guy that you can somewhat depend on. But there's always going to be 4 or 5 plays that you're just like, oh my God, that was almost a turnover, or that was a turnover that we just did not need to have happen.
And that's and that's the difference. Like in those games for for the Colts to win, those turnovers have to become almost turnovers. So
yeah,
a long pick has to get dropped, or it's just batted down, or he doesn't see the the weak side guy coming. He gets sacked, loses the ball, but then the Colts fall on it, right? So it's not a disaster. Those are the things that have to happen. But when they actually turn into these incredibly negative plays, then if you have less than average quarterback, like the 20th best quarterback, you're going to lose these games, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and it was funny. Brady didn't play well. This wasn't a great Tom Brady game. He's had a tremendous season, no matter how you slice it. But I felt in a weird way relieved, and I think it's beneficial for him to at least once again feel that it's not solely on him to execute flawlessly in order for this team to win.
Fair.
And I think these splash plays, it just felt so good. I was hyped up, really hyped up for this game. It was a big game. The Bucs have struggled on the road. The Colts are 6-2 in their last 8 games, coming off a massive win versus an AFC powerhouse in the Bills. They dominated the Bills so thoroughly last week that everyone's questioning whether the Bills are legit, which is fair. Different story. Shaq Barrett, I just want to talk about a couple guys who created some of these turnovers and guys who stood out to me. Shaq Barrett, he had 2 sacks, could have been 3. He had that massive forced fumble. Yeah. He was fantastic. And Antoine Winfield, man, that pick.
He's so good, dude.
Oh my God, is he good? He's
so insanely good at football.
Yeah,
he's so good. He's a vet, man. It's unreal. He is not in his second year. He's incredible. No. And you look at him and you think he's just some thumper on the back end, right? Because he looks so stocky and so thick with 2 C's, But the dude can move, and he's an incredible ball hawk. Cap, I know you were high on Winfield coming out of Minnesota, University of Minnesota, as a lot of people were. Yeah. But he is, I think, met and when he was picked, I feel like everyone thought it was a good pick, not just in Tampa, but everyone was really high on grabbing him in the second round. But he has to have at least exceeded expectations so far.
Well, he's a leader back there. Yeah, well, I think the general consensus was he was one of those guys that, however his career's gonna go, you're gonna get the most out of him, right? He's gonna give you whatever it takes to get the best production from what he has just in him, right? And even as a second rounder, great. And he's lived up to it. He's awesome. And he's standing out on a defense with all those stars and all those huge names, which is really saying something, right? And I know, like we said, everyone's been banged up, especially the defense. It's been tough, but he's just a phenomenal player, and he's going to be huge because I think look at the teams they're going to have to go through to get to the Super Bowl. They're all going to be chucking the ball. They're all going to want to throw it. So good luck going at Winfield, right?
He changes the ceiling of that defense. That's just what it is. It's a different defense with him back there, with him literally all over the field, really. It doesn't do justice. What I think is he only had 7 tackles, but he's just kind of around on everything. You know what I mean? He's just always around. Yeah, 7 tackles, 5 solos.
That's not bad. That's pretty solid. And quarterbacks are aware of him.
Yeah.
Right? Which is
you gotta stay away from him.
As high a compliment as you can give. They need to account for him on all downs, especially when they're pushing the ball down the field. And look, that he ended up making the big play, right? Like Colin said, they weren't going to stop them. They needed those turnovers. As someone who bet the Bucs -3, I can tell you that it did not look good defensively, but you make the big plays when it counts. And like we said, they still somehow scored 38 as a result. And man, it really did have similar Washington and New Orleans vibes, though. I think that needs to be addressed. This just happened to be one that they kind of won, which is great. I mean, I know, Colin, you were there were a couple people on Twitter talking about how I can't even remember exactly, but they were arguing about the quality of the win. But I could kind of see where they were coming from, just from a standpoint of letting teams hang around and not playing their best. But it's hard to win. And Indy, like you said, had been hot. You know what? That's the other thing. The other takeaway, Indy's solid. And, I kind of assumed Tampa was just going to go in and roll just based on talent alone and the Brady versus Wentz matchup. I kind of thought it was going to be a 34-20 game. But they showed up. They played well, and they easily could have won the game. So that one's on – I'll eat a little bit of that considering how solid Indy's been lately.
They did show up, and the Bucs D-line hasn't been talked about a ton. I know I already talked about Barrett, but they were going up against a really solid offensive line, and they were making things difficult at times for Carson Wentz. They've done their job. The issues is just the injuries in the secondary, and obviously Devin White was really banged up yesterday. He missed the majority of the first half, came back, wasn't himself. That was unfortunate because I was really looking forward to. I thought it was a big game for him, but he's been playing really well. The last few games. So that's huge. Another guy I want to just mention is Mike Edwards. A safety playing a lot of slot. He's playing in the nickel, covering slot receivers. And he just keeps making plays, man. Mike Edwards is not discussed enough. I think if the Bucs come out of this and things work out once they get Carlton Davis back, which fingers crossed, things are looking pretty good for next week versus Atlanta. Obviously Jamel Dean went down this game, which sucks, and Sean Murphy-Bunting is really having trouble out there. But, if fully healthy, I do expect this unit to improve dramatically. And I think Carlton Davis would be a huge factor because now you got a guy like Mike Edwards who you can't keep off the field. You have to find ways to get him on the field, in my opinion. I don't know. Corey Hall on Facebook, just talking about they stayed in cover 2, so not much open, but the flats in the middle third. So Brady took what they gave him. The Colts, a good team. Yeah, I mean, you're right, Corey. Yeah, I'm with that. It's totally accurate. I think I still expected the Bucs receivers. There was more to it than Brady taking what they gave him, though, in this particular game. I think generally the result would support what you're saying here. And Lenny had a massive, massive second half. Yeah. Dude looks like a blend between Marshall Faulk and Jim Brown this year.
Is he the game? He gets the game ball?
Yeah, he gets 4 of them, 1 for each touchdown, man.
He's got it, right?
Ties the franchise record.
He just seems kind of unstoppable a little bit, right? Even Rojo got in on the party too, right? So big shout out to the offensive line for the Bucs as well. But
with all the weaponry on the outside, there's so much potential running room for these guys if they play call effectively. They're going to have advantages. I'm not taking one iota away from Lenny. He was fantastic, but it's just the balanced offense in football, it just allows everybody to eat, right? And he's such a classic example on why he's been so productive this year. He was awesome. And once again, I hate to take it back, but if you had Tampa -3, that last run was pretty nice as well to just punch it all the way into the end zone there too. But anyways, yeah. Also, I don't know where I'm sure we discussed this, but I think it's nice to not have a 1A and a 1B. It's a distinct number 1 and number 2. And that's not even to take anything away from Jones, but he knows he's going to get the ball, 8 to 12 times, as opposed to, what's
you
happening.
might be the number. You might be the feature. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because, before this, run from Fournette, that was obviously possible, right? So I think that helps anyone. I think the role allocation will help their chemistry. Everyone knows what's happening. It's huge for them. And he was awesome again. Fournette was awesome again.
I'm glad you said that, Scott, because I completely agree. And as a Bucs fan, it's really nice. Like coming into this year, I just was prepared for the handcuff. We talked about it a lot, just for them splitting carries pretty equally. And even if one guy ran away with it, I just didn't expect it to happen this quickly, or for Bruce to fully commit to Fournette as that bell cow guy. And he is certainly taking advantage of it. I texted Scott about how yesterday, because him betting on the Bucs, it was nice. He was engaged via text with me. Talking to
even more so than usual. Yeah.
Yeah. But just how like he's looking like the guy who was drafted 4th overall at LSU more than the guy who was discarded by the Jags and waived, right? Like now he has to be viewed that way. Like, let's not forget, you know what I mean? Like shouldn't be a shock. He's had the talent. And I think the thing about Fournette is he seems to be endeared by his teammates. Like if you watch any of the Buccaneers communications, like they do tons of great social material on socials and content, and he's just like totally embraced, and it seems like the guys absolutely love him. And I feel like he's kind of got this like replenished zest or passion for the game. And I know we've talked about it, but I think Bruce Arians has a lot to do with that. And I think Lenny appreciates it. And I just think he's a really nice fit. And I was not high on Lenny at this point of his career. You know what I mean? I was Team Rojo. I'll be the first to tell you. I was Team Rojo. But this Leonard Fournette, it's a theme. We're always having to talk about him because he just continually is churning tough yards, and he's catching the ball. He's catching the ball. Nice reminder here. He's only 26. People are whack. Chris Williams on YouTube. Thank you, sir.
I take that with a grain of salt, though, right? Because that's not normally how these things end, right? Like the way that Lenny's career was, like the trajectory of his career, like it's not normal for a top pick to get cut and then go to his next team and be good right away. Like that's not a normal thing that happens in football or any sport, really. Like it's really tough to
be good again.
Yeah. Really. It's really tough to regain that type of, and I'm not saying because like you're drafted 4th overall, I think you're kind of supposed to be the guy that kind of changes a franchise and put it on his back, and that's not his role in Tampa at all by any extent. But he is a different player than he was with the Jags. That's for sure.
Speaks to a couple of things. This is why you should never take a running back at number 4, obviously. And but yeah, I think he's playing like he realizes that if it doesn't work here, then he might, really not make any money again as a football player. So, and like, I don't mean to reduce it to that, but in all seriousness, like this is how you can provide for like generations of your family, right? This is when you have to do it right now. And I swear, I'm sure he was 5-star, can't miss out of LSU. He was unreal at LSU. He comes to the NFL as the number 4 overall pick. I'm sure he never had much like football adversity, right?
No,
it was just all a matter of, he will be awesome and then get a contract and, be an 8-time Pro Bowler or something like that. And that wasn't the case. And he's playing just differently. Like he's playing like he knows nothing's guaranteed. And I know that's a little bit cliched or whatever, but that's how it actually looks to me. And it's actually manifesting itself on the field.
Let me take your cliche a step further. He's got a chip on his shoulder.
Oh, baby, does he ever chip and dip?
Hey man, cliches are popular for a reason because often they're versatile in their description of various things.
A lot of
In
work.
ter- in terms of in terms of the offense, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, just taking it a step further than just Fournette. I mentioned his 4 touchdown performance ties the Buccaneer franchise record with Doug Martin and Jimmy Giles. I just want to say, Bo, you mentioned it already, and I'm glad you did. Just the O-line played a fantastic game.
Yeah.
They were without their best player, arguably, in Ali Marpet. And then his backup, valuable backup that I was just ecstatic they re-signed, as I think many Bucs fans were who were familiar, was Aaron Stinney, versatile backup guard who did phenomenal at last year's postseason run, filling in for Alex Kappa. He goes down early in the first quarter, and Nick Leverett, I'm not sure how to properly pronounce his name, comes in, and yeah, he gave up a sack to DeForest Buckner at a point, but this is a third string guard. It was his first start, like first NFL action, live action, and I thought he did a really serviceable job in a nightmare matchup against a guy like DeForest Buckner. So this O-line constantly, as O-lines are in general, it's the most underappreciated position in all of sports. But this O-line is just, that's what you want. You don't want them being talked about much, and they haven't been, but they deserve to be because they're just such a fantastic unit. And when you got not one, but 2 guys who can slide in 3 deep at one position and still get the job done, and pave the way for Fournette like they did, and Brady had plenty of time for the most part. I mean, really impressive job by this unit. They look like the best offensive line in football. I mean, that's obviously subjective, depending on what metrics you find most valuable. We'll have to ask Brandon Thorne, but loving the O-line, loving the big boys, Bo. I know that gets you excited.
Gets me going, man. Yeah, there's no holes. Like, that's the thing, right? And part of it is Brady getting the ball out fast, and that's always going to be something that people bring up when they talk about the Bucs O-line. But they are protecting that pocket so well, and they are moving guys in the run game. Like, you just don't get to be where you want to be against this O-line, which is the most frustrating thing for any defensive line. DeForest Buckner was like trying to wreak havoc, and obviously he got to the quarterback once. But even getting to the second level against a guy like Darius Leonard, like he had a good game, he had a big game, and he sticks out on the tape. But they're there when you need them to. So yeah, big shout out to the O-line.
He's so good, Darius Leonard.
He's just nuts. He's scary to look at. Like, every play just seems like if it's within 5 yards of the snap, he's going to be there.
He's smart too. Like, he's a really smart player. He's long also. Like, his arms are really long. I find that really noticeable. Hence that tip pass kind of displayed his length and his smarts, because right away he's knowing that they got to pick up that PI flag.
Yeah.
So very cool.
His shoulder, like his delt is like the size of like a normal bicep. Like, it's like that's how long it is. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's so crazy when on a field full of people who are just different, than someone actually stands out and looks different. Right? Like, oh wow, that is something else going on there.
Yeah.
He's like that classic linebacker, classic middle linebacker, you know what I mean?
And just like the intangible factors matter, like Scott at that level, like coming out of South Carolina State, he was nothing to write home about. I mean, sorry, I don't want to say that, but I mean, he was
shots fired.
I don't mean nothing to write home about, but I mean, a lot of guys wrote him off or didn't consider him anywhere near this elite of a prospect. And like what he's done in the NFL, he is a top 3 linebacker undoubtedly in the league. And I think coming into this year, I was certainly feeling Devin White, as you should be, and he's starting to really come around now. But at that point, I would have been like, oh, give me Devin White all day. But I think Darius Leonard this season has kind of just the consistency and the all-around play has shown that Devin White has a lot of work to do.
That's not a trade that would interest you, Devin White for Darius Leonard for Devin White?
No, just because Devin's younger and like his ceiling's still crazy.
Barely younger, and you have Tom Brady right now. So
no, I would not do that. Absolutely not. No. Look what Devin White did in the post. Devin White in the postseason last year looked like a fucking Lawrence Taylor, but moving like
from the middle,
moving like a DB, like half Rondé Barber, half Lawrence Taylor. A little bit of Charles Woodson. Like he was all over.
This is a lot, but Darius Leonard beside Levante David would be a special like brainiac Mensa Club type of linebacker core.
Listen, I don't want it to come down to this, but I have written home about Devin White, and I have never written home about Taylor. Okay? The letter, I can get the letters. I got the receipts. I get the return to centers, actually, because my parents just, didn't want to read them, I suppose. But for whatever that's worth, I just wanted to throw that in there.
No. We're picking hair. We're like splitting hairs here, right? Darius Leonard and Devin White. Those are two of the best linebackers in this league for a long time.
Absolutely. Jared France on Facebook. I was there yesterday. That is awesome. I'm about a 10-hour drive away from Indy, and I wish it would have worked in terms of my schedule and who was around to potentially go with me. One of them just had a kid. So I didn't even ask him.
Funny you say that, and it's just ironic just that they're in Indy because, not that it's a Michigan football podcast, but we're 26 minutes in, and Michigan's going to be in Indianapolis for the Big Ten title game. So I've been looking for hotels and stuff basically since Saturday night. I wanted to wait till after the game was officially over, right, to look. But 7 hours door to door to the old whatever the Colts play at. Is it the RCA Dome still? No, I don't think that's
Wasn't it Lucas Oil or whatever?
Lucas Oil, that's right. Yeah. 7 hours door to door. So under consideration.
Waited till after the Bucs game to bring that up. Hey, we could have just made it a week-long thing, Mr. Capron.
Sorry, bud. There's a lot going on. All right, I'm still trying to just come to fruition with the fact that Michigan won the game. So it's a miracle that we're here even 48 hours later.
Yes, congratulations. By the way, I would have brought that up, but I see you couldn't resist.
That's
the opportunity. I don't blame you.
One might argue that Michigan beating Ohio State doesn't have a ton of relevance to the Colts-Bucs game, right? So I think I'm okay with letting it slide until now.
Corey Hall on Facebook. Do you think the Bucs re-sign Fournette? Great question, Corey. I think a lot depends. There's a lot of moving factors there. Kind of a tough thing to predict. I will say that I think Jason Light and Bruce Arians are both big on like the loyalty factor, and they will feel a special attachment if Fournette is able to keep performing how he has this year. And I think they will make an attempt to re-sign Fournette. He was generous. He had a huge postseason last year, but he signed a pretty he could have got more money elsewhere. There were teams like the Seahawks and other teams very interested in his services for this season. He wanted to run it back in Tampa. He liked the opportunity. He liked the vibe. He liked the jewelry that comes with winning a Super Bowl. So I think he's going to want to stay, and I think they're going to want to re-sign him. The question is, how short-term can they go? And what's the financial flexibility? Bucs have started to have to get a little more creative in terms of pushing back salary and things of that nature.
Voidable years.
Mike Greenberg.
I think if you re-sign Lenny Fournette, you're going to hear the words voidable years quite a few times.
And there's plenty of good running backs going to be in the draft this year. So we'll see. It all depends on what that number is and how the rest of the season plays out. But definitely something worth mentioning. Appreciate this.
It's going to come down. It's going to come down to years. It's definitely going to come down to years if you're talking about Lenny Fournette.
Yeah,
so, for sure. He wants to be here though.
If he can get more guaranteed after what he's done, it's probably what he's going to do and what he should do, right? Even though the loyalty factor is obviously high, like Colin just mentioned with the Bucs. So that's a really fascinating one, especially just he's been so good, right? He's obviously going to be coveted around the league.
Yeah, totally. Rich 0665 on YouTube. Was great to see Gronk kick butt yesterday. Rich, thank you for saying that. Leads nicely into the next player that we can't not talk about. Rob Gronkowski, man. It was him coming back from this injury. These last two games, he's been their most dynamic offensive weapon. 7 receptions for 123 yards yesterday. I said after the Giants game, not just a red zone threat, not just a beast in the blocking game, but he's a dynamic receiver as well. And my eyes are being open to it in a way that he's given them what they need when they're not getting, when Evans and Godwin are having some trouble, whether it's the scheme, whether it's a matchup, regardless of the reason. He seems to have really peeled back another layer of his potential within this offense. Him and Brady's chemistry continuing. I don't want to say grow, but continuing to resurface, and it's been really exciting and much needed in a game like yesterday. They do not win that game without Rob Gronkowski.
Not a chance. This guy literally cannot. He only falls forward. He wherever you hit him first, he's getting 2 to 3 more yards, if not 5. Like, he's insane the way that he deals with contact in the NFL. Like, talking about Darius Leonard and looking different up there. When Gronk has the ball, it feels like the guys around him are children. Like, it's crazy how fast, or not how fast, just how strong he seems on the field still to this day. So, yeah, I was gonna say, like, if we don't give the game ball to Lenny, it's probably Gronk's, right?
Yeah, Gronk deserves a game ball for that for sure. His hands. It's funny because he's so strong and he's so like RoboCop looking out there.
But he's catching the ball away from the body.
Always. He still has soft hands, soft yet firm. I don't know how to describe it. It's crazy. It's just wild. A couple other good comments coming in here that I think we need to hit on. You know, half the fun being here on Bucs Report, doing these Monday night wrap ups is to have all these great people watching and chiming in. So I want to make sure we're involving you guys. Make sure you check us out on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, Bucs Banter. Greatly appreciate it. The support. Alex Schomber, hope I'm saying that right, my guy. We just got to stop playing from behind. Other than that, we are good. Yeah.
It's like a warm up almost, right? Like that first quarter feels like they're not all going, but especially Brady lately, it seems like he's not ready to go from the first snap.
Well, let's not forget too much. You know, against the Giants, that first opening drive by Leftwich and Brady was possibly the most flawless offensive drive I've ever seen in football.
But Bo's right. There have been a couple examples of just like, okay, what do you need to get started in this game here? You need to be down 14-3 just to wake up, and that's Brady and team wide, which are kind of, you know, go hand in hand, right? So, I think that's true. Alex saying that about the Bucs, and especially against the class of the NFC. I'm sorry, I know I keep harping on it, but the top of the NFC is so deep. And to make a run, you're going to have to beat a handful of really good teams. And it's going to be hard to come back from these huge deficits because those teams can score too. And they can keep piling up points. And
they're relentless.
Yeah. Like, you know, having to come back against Washington or even New Orleans is like a Trevor Siemian-led New Orleans team is just not the same thing as playing against Kyler or Aaron Rodgers. So, that's something that needs to be addressed. Listen, we saw it in the playoffs last year. I think they can borderline just flip a switch and realize when the games really matter here. But it's definitely something worth mentioning.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like the offense is the least of my worries with the team in general.
It's just the vibe. Like it's just the whole sense of the team and then like how much they're into the game right away. It's not necessarily the number of points the offense scores. Like even in that Saints game, they scored 27 points, right? Like, which is normally enough to win. It's just, it's just the general vibe that they're sending out, and whether or not they even want to be there. It seems like on given Sundays.
Absolutely. I'm not saying I don't agree or see what you guys are talking about or what Alex brought up. Like I do, and what Bo said. Like I totally do. I agree. I'm just saying I'm extremely confident that they'll work it out. Like I'm not worried. Once Antonio Brown's back, Gronk playing like this, Gronk and
when is AB back? I was just trying to look that up. It's
been pretty mysterious. It's been pretty mysterious. Wait and see. We're playing the Falcons this week, so like I don't see a need to rush him back unless he's that close to being ready. This has been a hush injury. The AB one. We see him in a walking boot on his own Instagram. So we really don't know the extent of it. At least I do not. If anyone has some insight on this, maybe some of our local Floridians were at training camp or saw the press conference live, chime in. Sorry, Scott.
Don't rush anyone back to play Atlanta. Don't even rush. Don't even, slowly jog. Don't do anything in order to get these guys back against it. They're good. They can win the game with with exactly the squad they had last week. So, I mean, want to get AB back, but there's still 5 games after this one. So, just rest up, bud. Rest up.
For sure. And Russ Weeks on YouTube. Hope AB comes back against Atlanta. He seems to torch them every time. I mean, if he's good, and also we got an update from Rich on YouTube. His boot is off. So these are all I don't believe I hope they're not gonna rush him back. They rushed Gronk back too early, cost him an extra couple games. Definitely, I'm with you, Scott, not to rush him back versus Atlanta, but it would be nice for him to get a little bit of a tune-up before that Bills game. So, and just for this offense to be what I think is has a potential to be the best offense in football, we need AB in the mix. Russ also said earlier it was good to see Scotty Miller out there. Yeah, huge play by Scotty Miller on special teams.
Yes.
You know, that was fantastic. Him recovering that muff punt return, one of the 5 turnovers we mentioned, along with a couple interceptions, one by Antoine Winfield, one by Pierre Desir at the end of the game to seal it, and then the 2 forced fumbles from Shaq Barrett and Mike Edwards. Getting lots of good comments here, so I want to try and hit these up.
Scott, what do you got there? What are you drinking right there?
It's just a beer, but it's from this brewery in Toronto, the Bandit. I was just, as soon as I finished that last thing, like, God, that probably looked so needlessly kind of weirdly classy, even though
I think your pinky was up. Yeah.
Yeah, let me tell you that it's Miller Lite. So for just squash any of the rumors out there.
I thought you were gonna say it's from the Elizabethan era, and you said from.
I've been saving it for a special night, So it looks like I'm some sort of wine guy. Let me tell you, I am not.
Chris Williams on YouTube. Mike Evans has to step it up. Don't know if the connection is there right now. The connection in the red zone is certainly right there still, and I don't want to demonstrate too much recency bias by hopping on with this, Chris. I think the one thing and you're told, like, yeah, he didn't have a great game in terms of his like volume numbers, his target share, his receptions, his yardage. It's certainly nothing spectacular like Bucs fans have become accustomed to experiencing in the past. However, this is part of what I love about Mike Evans being a part of a complete receiving core alongside Chris Godwin, AB, Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson, all these guys who can play on the outside in the NFL. Is his unselfishness. Like, I truly believe Mike Evans is fine running routes, blocking, pissing off DBs like Marshawn Lattimore and James Bradbury, and just doing whatever it takes for the team to win. I think he's secure in terms of his status. I don't think his ranking as a receiver in the league is top of mind to him. I think it's repeating as a Super Bowl winner, and as long as the Bucs are winning, I'm totally fine. I don't give a shit about what Mike Evans' stat lines read, to be perfectly honest, because I think defensive coordinators and other teams scheming have to worry about him just as much as they ever have. And that's often a reason why he gets, I don't want to say used as a decoy, but why he is still drawing so much attention, which is helping this offense as a whole, regardless of what his stats might read or how many touches he gets.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. As far as like a number one target, he's maybe the guy who's most okay with this decoy role or, sacrificing for others. So from that standpoint, I totally agree. Like, how great of a personality is that to have when you have all the other guys on the team? But it's like, but doesn't he want a little bit more? Like, doesn't he want to produce a little bit more, like, tangibly? I don't know. I'm just more playing devil's advocate here because he's a wide receiver who will want catches, yards, and touchdowns like everyone, right? But
he's a wide receiver. He's a wide receiver leading the NFL in receiving touchdowns as well.
Yeah,
so that's like,
no, I know for sure. I just mean in general going forward, right? Like, I don't disagree with anything you said. Like, that's why he's such a valuable guy to have, because maybe the stat line for him doesn't matter as much. It's just, I don't know. It's just almost strange to talk about a receiver who is so okay with blocking and like taking 2 guys. So then, the rest of the field, the rest of the wide receivers are getting one-on-one coverage, right? It's just more of a strange, like, dichotomy than anything. It's weird.
It totally is.
I think that's the thing with Bucs fans is you guys are kind of spoiled, right?
Yeah.
You have these 2 ridiculous wide receivers who are completely fine with blocking on every play.
Right.
That is not like something the other 31 teams are accustomed to. Like, 2 borderline number 1 guys who are just like, oh, you don't need me to catch too much today? Oh, I can do other stuff. Like, I'm just going to go out there, I'll run my routes, and I'll just try to, like, knock somebody on their ass on every play. Yeah. And, like, especially with Godwin, like, I think a lot of people are going to be getting on Godwin. I think if you're going to talk about, like, some of the sore spots of this game, that Godwin fumble is something that's just, like, you're not accustomed to seeing that at all. But he is so involved in the blocking game to the point that even the broadcasters are just like not even realizing that he's out there. Like he'll like on that goal line, I forget who it was that scored. It was either Lenny or it was Rojo. But they're like, oh, Mike Evans is singled outside. And it's like, well, they also have another wide receiver, Chris Godwin, but he's basically playing tight end because he's that good of a blocker.
Yeah.
And he's a threat to catch the ball as well, too, on this play. But yeah, it's unbelievable what those guys can do. And I don't think I don't think if you look at the box score and just say, okay, Mike Evans had a bad game, you didn't get the gist of what happened in that game, right? You could go back and watch a bunch of plays where he was making a difference.
I like nitpicking. Like I like nitpicking at this shit because it's such a advantageous position to be in to be able to do it. Like, you know, like we're saying, oh, Evans got to do this. I'd like to see Godwin do this. The point is we have them both and they're tremendous players. And we're not like AB is out right now. Like it's crazy. The one thing about Godwin, if I'm going to nitpick, and Bo, thank you, by the way. That was like a really like, you know, affirming credit to our receiving core, and I appreciate you speaking to Bucs fans directly. I would like so Godwin is like totally shifted. He's playing in the slot all the time, like you said, blocking, like doing all. Dude goes over the middle constantly. He's taking these screen passes or hitch passes up the gut, like he's getting gritty yards. But I want to see them send him more. Like I want to see him go vertical more because he is tough in the vertical game as well. He absolutely can do it. He's been incredible over the course of his young career.
And he's going to win these 50-50 balls. Like, I don't think anyone's doubting that, right? Like, I agree, Colin. Like, hey, if he is tough as nails and he's going to go over the middle and he'll make someone miss on a 3rd and 6 to get that first down kind of thing. But he's also just like a legit good deep threat and someone who is super dynamic and can go make plays. I feel like they're lacking that a little bit, but then it's, you know, they have all these boxes checked. Like they can do all of this. It's just a matter of deciding when you want to employ it all, I think, right?
100%, man. 100%. Like, you know, down the field, there's times when I see how Mike Evans, like it gets chalked up as a miscommunication, but I'm kind of like, dude, like show a little urgency down there. Like tackle the DB if you have to, if that ball is being floated up. Like, you know, don't do the old, I ran the wrong route. We were all not on the same page. With Godwin, like, he will lay out for a ball, like throw his body on the line every single time. So just something I would like to see personally. Again, the luxury of being able to nitpick at two of your elite receivers. Once AB's back, like, that's what I'm saying when I'm saying I'm not worried. I'm just can't wait for them to be at full health. Someone in here said AB is going to be back. That Bruce said it today. I didn't have a chance to see the press conferences. I saw it in one of these comments here. Apologies if I can't pull it up, but hopefully that is true. And Carlton Davis, man, hoping he's back. Sounds like he's going to be back. In terms of nice comment coming in here from Buster Rags on Facebook. Why do our corners play so far off wide receivers? We have to fix that. You know, Buster, the only guy it really bothers me with is when I see it happen to Sean Murphy Bunting, because I'm so often seeing him get burned. Like,
I think that's the reason. That's why they're playing so far off, is that they are equally up, like very concerned about being burned deep. And especially with go ahead.
No, I'm just 100% right. Yeah, they're keeping everything in front of them and daring a team like the Colts with Carson Wentz to nickel and dime their way down the field with 5-yard outs and stuff like that, right? So that's what they're like. That's Buster. That's why they're doing that.
It's that, and you have Levante David and Devin White, who are sideline and sideline linebackers, who you're not really that worried about guys getting to the edge on you because you're going to get there as well with your linebackers.
But Bo, you're totally right. I mean, it is almost historic how successful the Bucs have been at limiting deep plays. It happened last game. Okay, Sean Murphy Bunting got burned, but this Buccaneers team is like first in the NFL in terms of limiting huge chunk plays, explosive plays. So that is Todd Bowles' whole agenda. Is he's willing to give up these like short check down plays and you know, death by 1,000 cuts or whatever they say, and hopefully you know you get stops from the end zone or you're. It's ultimately relying on what happened last game. You want some turnovers. This is that's Bowles' philosophy. You know what I mean? So it's been working for the Bucs to some extent, but the injuries, it's hard to weigh. But that is ultimately the exact reason why they're lining up so far off. I don't love it either. but it's better. Like when I would see Vernon Hargraves lining up off guys when he was our first cornerback, like that was infuriating. You know, I mean, it just feels different.
Yeah.
Lots of great comments coming in, so I'm loving this. It's fueling our conversation. You're taking me right off our itinerary, but I'm good with that. Just want to say, anyone watching on YouTube, please check us out. Check out our channel as well. If you're watching on Bucs Report YouTube, any likes, but if you subscribe to our channel, Bucs Banter, it helps us out a ton, and we really appreciate it. We're always broadcasting there as well. Thank you for tuning in. Sorry, Cap, were you going to chime in on that last discussion point?
No. I was just gonna say there's a few more comments here, like but it was third and also from Buster saying it was 3rd and 5, we're playing 10 yards off. Yeah, that's no good. All right, on 3rd down, that's no good. But you're still daring Wentz and the Colts to execute properly to actually convert a first down, right? That's because you're worried about getting deep. It's on 3rd down, it's obviously not as acceptable, but that's just where they're coming from.
I'm completely fine with it, honestly. When it's 3rd and 5, I would rather give up 8 yards than a touchdown. That's basically what it comes down to me. It's just like, if I'm that worried about my guy getting burned, okay, we'll live to play another set of downs here because I don't want to give up that touchdown.
Yeah, and hey, like that's not great, by the way. If you're so worried about getting burnt all the time that you're just giving up first down, like no, of course not. But it's like it's the whole issue of playing defense in the NFL. It's a complete pick your poison situation on literally every single play, right? And this is where this is kind of the hand of the dealt that the Bucs have been dealt as a result of injuries and stuff, right? So,
and maybe it's a philosophy thing then, because like if it's 3rd and 5 and you call a play that has a deep shot in it, I'd rather you get to the line and say, "Oh crap, that guy's playing 10 yards off. I'm going to change that route and make them go underneath, and I'm going to take 8 yards here," rather than being like, "Oh, this guy's up at the line. I know my guy can beat him, and he's going to beat him for 12 to 15 or 20 yards or possibly a touchdown." Right?
And I'm with you there, Bo. But like reasonable minds can disagree on that. Right? Like it's a total philosophical stance, basically, right? So, yeah.
Going to keep catching up on some comments here. Russ Weeks on YouTube. I'm worried about how thin we are at guard with Stinney going down. When he went out, Brady got sacked. So the hope is Ali Marpet with his abdominal issue won't be out too long. I feel great about our interior offensive line depth, to be honest. I mean, I don't know the extent of Stinney's injury at this point. But, I mean, our 3rd string guard looked great in this game. We also have Robert Hainsey, who we drafted out of Notre Dame. That's he's not just a swing tackle. He's a swing guard. He could play center, so his versatility is key. So I feel really good about the depth of our offensive line, and especially because that's something that Buccaneers fans haven't been accustomed to over the years. And I probably harp on it too much. I love having this offensive line. I sleep better at night. My kids are happier because I'm happier. They're getting better cereal. Everything is working out, and it all stems from the quality of our offensive line, their cohesiveness together. They're on the same page with Tom Brady. Ryan Jensen's wearing a towel in his ass just because Tom Brady doesn't want him to sweat there. Like everyone is sacrificing.
That's love, man.
That is love.
I love it. I love nothing more. Argy Pugh, I don't know if I'm saying your name right, my friend, but thank you for the comment. People complain, but just a few years ago, we would be overjoyed with the production on the worst game the last year and a half. Stop being so critical when we have been so awful for decades. Perfect. Love it. Love it. Nothing more to say than that. I love it. Yasan, Ben Israel, reports are coming out. Brady in Vegas paid Jonathan Taylor to stay off the field. Frank Reich was defending his angle on that, my guy, but I love it anyway.
Let's see the sources there.
Yeah, he goes on to say, Bunting, that boy always getting smoked. Should say Blunting, that boy's always getting smoked. Am I right?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, Russ
All right,
Weeks.
about that one.
Yeah, Russ Weeks, appreciate the sub, appreciate it very much. Lots of great comments tonight.
Man, and lots of football X and O stuff too. Like this is wow. We're into that old 50-minute mark, and we have just been talking Bucs, and I love it.
Yeah, no, it's been great.
Are we gonna? Can we look ahead? Can we look ahead a little bit? I don't really want to talk about Atlanta, but looking at the playoff standings, San Francisco coming into Raymond James Field. How would you feel about that?
Tough. They'd be tough to beat. Like, obviously, Tampa's a favorite, and I'd expect them to win the game. But San Fran right now looks as good as almost anyone in the league.
I mean, they're getting there.
Still Garoppolo.
Yeah, like
Does
that's.
Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Colin. Sorry.
No, I don't even know what I'm going to say. I'm just talking. I mean,
All right. Well,
well, let me say one thing. I owe you something,
go ahead.
man, and I think Scott owes you too. You were all on Deebo Samuel coming into this year, and I was like, I would rather Ayuk out of those two, and I think Scott was sided with me on that one. I'll have to run the tape, Scott. Don't defend yourself because I can find it. I'm almost positive. But Bo, you were on Deebo.
No,
I love Deebo.
What a year, man. Deebo Samuel is going berserk. Not like we're trying to stray away from the Bucs, but it's on the topic of conversation.
Deebo looks like the high school kid who plays 7 different positions, and you just get him the ball on every single down, except for he's doing it in the NFL.
Sean Cowie. Deebo Samuel. Sean Cowie.
100%. Sean Cowie is very, very apt comparison. But like, he is the guy in high school that you're just like waiting for him to come off because you don't feel like you have a chance when he's on the field.
Yeah.
They're a different team with him. I know he went down yesterday. It looks like he's only going to miss 1 or 2 weeks with that. They're a different team. What's that?
Who is that? Sorry.
Deebo Samuel. He went down in against the Vikings, but I think it was a hip thing. I actually can't remember what it was, but he's out for like 1 to 2 weeks. But if he's on the field, he makes them a different team. But I absolutely hate that matchup for the 49ers. A 49ers offense who depends very heavily on the run. I just can't see it happening against the Bucs D. I said this to Scott before the game, and we were thinking about taking the Bucs in our little pool, but I can't see a team beating the Bucs by running the ball. If that's your main thing that you do well, you are going to have a really tough Sunday or Saturday or whenever you play that game. It's going to be really tough to get it. The yards that you need to win a game.
I mean, I agree, but I'm biased.
No, it goes back to like when we were talking about like offline, we were talking about playoff matchups. I was like, Minnesota is probably one of the worst teams that you guys could play for a first round matchup, just because I feel like that deep threat with Justin Jefferson, who is just like, again, another guy in this league that's just tearing up every corner that he comes across. Thielen's still there. They have so many tight ends that I like as well too. If the Vikings somehow make another run, I know it's going to be tough with all of the Everson Griffin stuff that happened. Dalvin Cook went out with a shoulder dislocation. Looks
Torn
like he's going to be out. Yeah, is he gone then?
At least 2 weeks, but like, I mean, a torn labrum, that's what Baker's dealing with.
That's going to nag. Yeah,
it's going to be bad. But they also have one of the most solid backups in Alexander Madison. We're hearing lost Dalvin Cook for the year. Last report I read, that's coming in from Buster Regs on Facebook. Last I read, it was at least 2 weeks, but I mean, that could potentially be super liberal if you can get us a source, we'll publish you, buddy. In terms of Deebo, Bo, let me just hit on your boy Deebo. Pretty cool stat. Second receiver in the history of the league to have a rushing touchdown. So second receiver to have a rushing touchdown in 3 consecutive games. Ironically,
who's the other one?
The other one is a guy who's just doing work this year, Cordero Patterson, who's done it twice. He's done it twice.
Could have got that one.
Twice this year.
Yeah, I mean,
if you told me it was this year, I would have said Cordell Patterson. I just thought it might have been someone from like someone random, like Devin Hester or something.
But it was years previous for Cordell. Like, it was like,
oh wow,
yeah, it wasn't this year. It hasn't happened this year, I guess, rushing. So found that to be interesting. Dug that one up on NFL.com. Also, thanks. I never know when Scott's being sarcastic or not.
No, that was genuine. That is a really good stat.
That was genuine. No, I took it as that. Your mustache is genuine. Like, I feel. I know we can't see the glass of scotch, but I know it's there. I hate the Saints with a passion, but I'm pulling for them Thursday night. Are they playing the Niners? Is that what's going on?
No, they play the Cowboys at home.
Cowboys. So how about I feel like we've done a good amount. We're talking about some other teams. Cowboys, tough loss. COVID's eating them up.
I think Yeah, I think we talk about these NFC contenders a little bit. And sorry, Colin, interrupt. But
Please.
I think we're getting on to Dallas. McCarthy is out. The coach is out for the Thursday nighter against New Orleans, so that's probably a huge plus for Dallas.
Yeah.
Got to think Kellen Moore might be in the head coaching seat by Saturday morning, something like that. We'll see what happens. But weird game. They just on Thursday night or Thursday afternoon, Thanksgiving. I know it went to overtime, but they needed everything right to happen to even get to overtime. The Raiders deserved to win that game. Dallas is banged up. No Cooper and no Lamb. Like, that's not even their real team, obviously, right? So it's a little bit, it's all relative, but they've been struggling. If they lost 3 of 4, I think. Now, one of those was at the Chiefs. This Raiders game wasn't like an abomination or anything, but also mix in the dismantling that Denver put on them, and it's been a weird little chunk of the season for the Cowboys. So, I see what Russ is saying. If New Orleans can come up with a win, that knocks Dallas down to 7-5, and all of a sudden you're in some weird playoff situation, right?
Yeah, Dak, just going back to the Cowboys, like Dak doesn't look right. Like, he doesn't look like the guy who started the season, right? Like, ever since he took that I forget what game he took off when he had like some sort of calf issue. He came back from that, and I think it's been like 3 or 4 games now that he's just kind of looked a little bit off.
Yeah, and then that explains the record in those 3 or 4 games, right? Like, he's so good, and he is such a game changer for them, obviously, when he's going. But no Lamb and no Cooper. We'll see. I think Lamb is going to play Thursday against New Orleans, so that helps them, obviously. What a weird part of the schedule for New Orleans. 2 Thursday nighters in a row, Thanksgiving, and then just a normal Thursday nighter, both at home.
Same with the Cowboys.
Yeah, at Dallas. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, New Orleans hosts both games. Just weird. New Orleans looks like a high school offense with all the guys they have hurt. Looks like Taysom Hill is going to start the game, based on what I was reading today. So,
is he not injured?
No,
he was bringing him back. He's dealing with plantar. It's funny. I read the report. He's dealing with plantar fasciitis, and then I read the same thing Scott read, which is they're going to move forward with him starting, which you have to after how awful Simeon looked that game.
He's not an NFL quarterback. That's like most people are not.
They're replacing him with Taysom Hill then. Not an NFL quarterback. Oh, Jesus!
Both options are superior to Ben DiNucci. Speaking of underwhelming Dallas Cowboys. Buster Rag says Zeke is awful this year. Buster, you must follow us on Twitter at Bucs Banter, and if you don't, you should, because I was talking exactly about this. I feel like, Scott's very passionate about wasting high draft capital on running backs, and he's voiced this.
I've mentioned it.
Since Zeke was in the womb, he was saying, "Don't draft this kid number 1" to his mom. It was evil, but he said it.
I told the nurse, and the nurse was like, "Get out of here, little boy." So anyway, yeah.
But yeah, man, Tony Pollard, like, what's Tony Pollard's average or annual income or AAV like compared to Zeke's, right? Because Tony Pollard looks like the better player all around right now. And that's ultimately what the tweet was. That's the only reason I referenced that, and I found that appealing, a nice way to boost ourselves.
They're different runners, and they bring different things, but this is if you have any argument or you need any example against the bell cow runner in the first round and all that, like, this is it, right? Because Zeke was very good, very productive for his first 5 years in the league, like, not knocking him at all. But they had a guy on the roster who was almost just as good. And Tony Pollard was drafted late and from a smaller school. I can't remember now. I want to say like North Texas or something.
I thought he was a Memphis guy. Guy.
It was Memphis.
Yeah, Memphis.
You're right. They mentioned it on the broadcast, actually. There's just not that much of a difference. Anyway, yeah. While Zeke can still get you those tough yards and turn 2 yards into 4 as good as anyone in the league, Pollard has that huge home run ability, right? And he showed it. He returned a kick against the Raiders the other day. But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, and I was trying to be reactive.
I just pulled it up. Like their salaries.
Me too.
Tony Pollard, $850K a year. Zeke's getting $9.6 million this year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So over 10 times.
Yeah, it's a little rough. It's not it's not doing a lot to my argument that if you have the right offensive line, you should invest in the running back. But yeah.
No, it is doing a lot to it, Bodan. It's killing it. Actually, it's doing well. So thank you.
Let's see here. A couple comments. Russ says, I think the Saints give the Cowboys everything they can handle, being at home and desperately needing a win. COVID has struck the Cowboys coaches pretty good. I feel like I think Scott said it earlier. McCarthy being out is beneficial to the Cowboys.
Also, didn't the Saints desperately need a win this past week?
True.
Yeah.
Great point. They looked really bad. Yeah, without Kamara too.
Wouldn't you rate Dallas and Buffalo as being almost like maybe a pick 'em, maybe Buffalo a 2-point favorite on a neutral field? I don't know. Like I'm
taking Buffalo. I'm taking Buffalo in that. So.
Yeah. Well,
Sure.
Are you still taking Buffalo with Tre'Davious White out?
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a factor, especially in that matchup. If we're talking
Big
specifically that
factor.
matchup. And that's a big matchup for the Buccaneers in their upcoming game versus the Bills.
All
It's a huge one.
Yeah.
Look at us just jumping around like Frogger. Just hopping around. I like it.
I had one like slight hiccup there. Now I'm losing my great Cowboys point. We're talking about Tre'Davious White's injury. Like no more slip ups over here. And I was just gonna say, yeah, New Orleans needed that win. They got absolutely dismantled. Honestly, I see something very similar happening again. How are they going to move the ball without Kamara? They don't have anyone.
The Saints aren't going to be good this year. That's like if you're a Bucs fan, you should be happy about that. I know it'd be fun to beat the Cowboys, and like everybody always wants to beat the Cowboys, see the Cowboys lose. But the Saints are not a professional football team this year, and they're not going to be one to close out this season.
Michael Thomas is 100% healthy. He's just making a calculated career decision here. He doesn't want to get. He doesn't want to be trying to catch jump balls. When a 5-yard out feels like a Hail Mary coming from Taysom Hill or Simeon or whomever.
Yeah. The thing that the Bucs fans should worry about, and this is going to tie in nicely with the Monday Nighter that we might want to preview. The Saints need to improve their pick so they can trade it for Russell Wilson.
Dude, there's a lot of teams that need to trade for Russell Wilson. I think the Cleveland Browns are one of them.
I was going to say that's like number 2. I think the ones that everybody's always going to say that we can strike off for the Seahawks, and the Seahawks play Washington tonight. And I think we talked about it 2 weeks ago. The Pete Carroll era is probably over. I think it could be actually over if they lose this game tonight. Everyone's always going to bring up the Broncos and the Panthers to pick up one of these star quarterbacks in this offseason. I think the Saints are going to be right there in it because this draft isn't looking good for quarterbacks. If the Saints could figure out a way to get Russell Wilson,
you don't think they
this is going to be a really interesting podcast next year.
But you don't think they liked what they saw from Winston enough before he got hurt? Like Jameis was pretty good.
Jameis looked
others. They don't have no Thomas, no Kamara. Like, doesn't matter who they have. Like,
True.
I don't know. I'm not ruling it out. Hey, if you can get Russell Wilson, then they're going to try to do it. But I just think there are a bunch of teams. That Cleveland one is interesting. How about Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh would be in a bad way. Let me just say, Bo, the Saints are in a terrible salary cap situation moving forward.
True.
So for them to take on Russell Wilson seems just not reasonable, unfortunately, as much as that would be helpful to them and something they could benefit from. Something like what Cap's alluding to, bringing back Jameis or something like that would allow them to at least make a better attempt at keeping they have a really strong defense, keeping that defensive unit intact for the most part.
Hey,
that defense is why I think Russell needs to go to a team with one of these like premier defenses, like a Pittsburgh or a Saints. But yeah, it's tough for the Cap.
He'd be getting that. He'd be hitting 2 birds with one stone because he'd also have a beyond competent play caller in Sean Payton compared to what the much maligned play calling strategy that has plagued Russell Wilson and the Seahawks since their Super Bowl glory days. I know we've talked about that a lot, but
I don't even know if you can call it play calling. I think it's more as like play doing or play obligated to go do something. It's so ridiculous that game is starting in 10 minutes. That kind of snuck up on us, eh?
Cap, you like a side in this game. Cap's our betting expert, so I think we got to get your.
The late money is coming in on Seattle, which worries me a bit. But I like Washington, man. I think they play with at least a fire. I like Heineke. I think he makes plays. I think Seattle might, if they go down 14-3 or something, I think they might crumble. Like Wilson, there's no way he's healthy. They've scored one touchdown, I believe, in like the 19 drives since he's been back. I don't think, let's not forget how bad they were last week, and even against Green Bay as well. Like, it was
last 2 weeks. Yeah.
The last 2 weeks. Yeah. So, hey, I get people are trusting Wilson and that the Seahawks are whatever, just going to kind of figure it out. I think they're done. I think this is a total a potential wave the white flag game, and I like Washington tonight big time. But hey,
we'll
I've been wrong before.
No.
Earlier today, a couple times. Just ask my wife. But yeah.
Well, Bo, how about you? Do you have any thoughts you want to get off your chest related to this game, betting or real life or otherwise?
No. I think this could be the nail in the coffin for Pete Carroll. I think this is the loss that they look back on and just be like, you couldn't beat Washington. How can we even think that we're a playoff team? Because at the end of the year, they're going to get 2 more wins against maybe the Texans and maybe the Lions. Oh, probably the Lions. But yeah, I think this is it. This is the end of that Pete Carroll era. And as bad as it looks on the way out, he had a pretty pivotal run in the NFL for a guy coming from college, which doesn't happen that often. So yeah, give him his flowers, but it looks horrible right now. And I don't think he should be an NFL coach.
He sucks. They suck. Etc.
Yeah, I mean, they've looked really bad last couple of weeks. I mean, I still have such a appreciation for Russell Wilson's greatness. I feel like he's bound to pull one out of his ass, and maybe it's tonight, but I really don't know. For me, it's a stay away. I don't know from a betting angle.
It's full stay away for me.
Based on what we've seen, I completely understand, because you're right, man. The Washington football team has looked really good of late, especially Simeon. Simeon's looked beyond competent. He's looked really solid.
Heineke.
Sorry, Heineke. Thank you.
Yeah.
Too many Heinekes this weekend for your boy.
I was about to say, you got Simeon on the mind. Yeah.
Marcus Simeon, rest in peace. Toronto Jays fans heading to Texas.
Yeah, boy. See ya, bud.
Ugh.
Rest in peace. The rest of this beer.
A lot of baseball signings today, eh?
Yeah, Scherzer to the Mets, right?
I'm watching Iowa, Virginia here, and sorry, this is another tangent, but Alabama's an underdog for the first time since 2015 in this SEC championship game against Georgia.
Wow. As they should be underdogs. This is Georgia's year, man. That defense is insane.
That's insane.
That defense is insane.
Last time they were a dog, they were a 1-point dog at Georgia, and they won 38-10. So that's pretty funny.
Rich 0665, that new offensive coordinator was not the answer for Seattle. You got to check our other episodes, man. We've covered this way more in depth than we should have. I don't even know how we have, but we've talked about it at
Bucs Banner podcast.
Yeah, Bucs Banner podcast, baby. Talking everything, not just Bucs. But Rich and anyone else tuning in for the first time, please give us a subscription. Search our YouTube channel, Bucs Banter, and subscribe. It's greatly appreciated so we can keep doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
Some good comments I'm not going to be able to get to. Yasan, who are your top 3 receivers? When you say I'm not sure what you mean. If we're talking NFL, I still think you got to give the mantle to Devontae, DeAndre Hopkins, and I would say Justin Jefferson as the top 3 if we're talking NFL wide.
Slanderous. Cooper Kupp is literally flipping tables and throwing his desk out a window right now. How dare you?
So funny. I wouldn't even have thought of Cooper Kupp, and he's totally worthy.
I'm racist against white receivers. You know that. But no, Cooper Kupp. I mean, I'm sorry, but give me any one of those 3 over Cooper Kupp if I'm building my team or having the moment.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going Devontae Adams. I think he's the clear number 1 for me. And then I'm going Cooper Kupp, and then I'm going Justin Jefferson, just because I feel like DeAndre is a little banged up right now.
Yeah, that wasn't in order. I was just trying to say the 3 names I think you got to say. And let me be clear as well. There's other guys. Situation matters. Obviously, I'm the biggest Jamar Chase fan, as you guys well know, and I was entering this year. He's a guy who's going to be on that list at some point soon, but not yet. That's for sure. Mike
It's cooled
Evans.
off a little bit.
Mike Evans was in a different situation, and he wasn't the unselfish guy who we talked about. I think he has that kind of talent, but as do a few other guys around the league. Situation matters. I mean, actually, you know what? Stephon Diggs has got to be on that list. I feel like I'm not. He's got to be on that in that top 3. So
I'm just saying, like, if we're giving out a reward for this year, Cooper Kupp has to be
yes. Well, if
top
it's
of mind, right?
you're right.
Like, I know, like, if you're building a team, like, maybe then you start to hum and haw about it, but I don't know. Like, I think he's kind of entered a different class of wide receiver right now, for me, at least.
Yeah. God damn it, you son. You come in with that question right at the end, bro. We're trying to get out of here for Monday Night Football. Cap's already placed two in-play bets already since the game started.
I may have hit it a couple times.
They haven't even kicked off, but at least he hit the Bucs too a couple times yesterday, and that paid off for him, just like it did your boy. I think we're gonna dip on out of here, watch some Monday Night Football, have a couple drinks to nurse.
I always believed in you.
That's right.
Good guy.
Oh, Metcalf can't be on that list. I love seeing Godwin's name there. Rich, sorry, I'm getting sucked into the comments
either. Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in, folks.
Yeah.
How about we think about it, and from the Bucs banner, we can the Twitter account, we can send you our top 3, and then we'll see if we can get some reactions here.
Maybe a few clips.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Now you're putting the boss man to work here, Bo.
Well, no, I'll give you. I'll get IT on it. Don't worry about it.
Call him
Perfect. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. It's been real. Happy to talk Bucs for an entire episode. Super great engagement. Shout out to YouTube, all you guys. Like I said, follow Bucs Banter and follow us on Twitter at Bucs Banter. Follow Bono's Ball. Follow Captain Ron. Enjoy Monday Night Football. Enjoy your week. Buccaneers trending into Atlanta for another hopefully convincing victory, or at least a convincing victory. And we'll talk again soon. Until then, keep it real.
Peace.